So unfortunately, Milo's audio was messed up for this session as well. So we're just gonna do a voiceover. For today, we're gonna start working on his sit, stay, and release. This is going to help in moments where we need to get him used to social environments and helps to kind of keep his composure while still letting him to get used to what's going on in an area and still maintaining focus on the handler. So just getting him used to getting up on the placement mat for a reward, having him focus on me. With Milo, because we've put in so much effort, especially with his family and the prior training on him following and focusing on them, he has a little bit of a harder time staying as the handler moves further away, which is perfectly fine. This kind of helps to build his discipline. Right now, I'm having him follow me on a heel with a nice loose leash. It's hard to tell at the moment, but the freedom leash that we're using is unlocked, so he can kind of really go as far as he wants to whenever he pleases. Okay. Here, I'm gonna let out some of the rope so that way you can kind of clearly see that he has slack, as well as not having any tension on the lead too, as sometimes that can make it so the pup wants to break early because they feel the leash is pulling them towards the handler. Using higher value or longer lasting chew treats really helps. Gives him something to do, as well as helps to build a positive association with being on the placement mat. I also try to make the visual and verbal cues very clear, so that way he can see when I want him to stay and when I want him to come to me. It's important when you're working with leashes that you're mindful so that way they don't get tangled up. You're also mindful of the environment in case cars or anybody comes nearby. The good part about working with a freedom leash is that you can quickly reel up the extra slack, whereas with a longer training lead, which I've used before, like a 15 or a 30 foot, you have to will have to wrap it up really quickly manually or try to step on a part of the leash to keep the dog from running off. Here he got distracted by something and was probably a bug that had touched him, and we're just resetting him as well. Going over right now all the things that we practice to help develop the sit, stay, and release discipline. The 3Ds are generally going to be distance, duration, and distractions. Distance is, of course, how far away you are from the dog when you're asking them to sit and stay, because a lot of times just you moving away will cause the dog to move towards you. Duration, of course, is just how long that they have to stay. Some puppies will have problems with this just because they get really bored with nothing to do for an extended amount of time. And then distractions, which we will be utilizing during socializing, is for him to see and have other things go around him when he should just be sitting and staying still. And all those things help with discipline. Some of them are interchangeable too, because generally the further away that you are with distance, the longer that he has to also stay. So it combines duration. And then there are a lot of closer things to him that could be more distracting. So here we are just practicing working on certain things at a time. So if he has problems with distance, right, because he wants to follow us, having him stay for an extended duration and working on him recalling to us or that release a few times over so he understands when he should be moving is going to be really important for some pups. A lot of times we'll get them to sit and stay, and just like with people, if we just ask them to stay or wait, the first thing that's going to come to their mind is, what am I waiting for, right? Or how long am I waiting for? Or, why am I waiting? A lot of the same things will happen with pups too. They'll get usually bored or distracted by something, and that will usually break the stay. So what we want to try to give them something to do is actually having them focus on waiting and listening for that release command. So we really emphasize them staying until the release, and that actually gives them something to actively do while they're staying instead of just staying and doing nothing, right? So it helps to keep their focus on us, and it helps to keep them sharp. Also helps with things like name recognition and then come when called, of course, too. Here we're giving them a little bit of a break. We're just practicing some heel work. This is usually when I notice that he also likes to get back in front when he's done walking for a treat. We want to try to get him used to heeling and walking on our side for a reward. But it's just natural because a lot of times after a task, we'll ask the dog to sit, and usually when that happens, they're in front of us. And so naturally he kind of rotates himself to the front. So we're just doing some sit stays and some follows here. Looks like we've got something behind the camera coming for a distraction. I can't remember what. I know that at one point some children wanted to meet him. So this might be it here. We're having him sit and stay so that way he doesn't move too quickly to startle the children. As you can see, he's very excited, and sometimes that can scare people, especially kids. So having his focus and having that discipline of him sitting and staying and having the guests come to him can really help in these situations, especially with controlling his excitement. And it's important to note too on that fact that just because he's sitting and staying doesn't mean that you've eliminated his excitement. You have to be very mindful and watch, because sometimes what'll happen is he's just holding that excitement back, kind of like winding up a spring, and if you don't release that properly, he'll just go and jump on your guests as soon as they get close to him. Okay, and then the children have left, so now, and you can see here, because he's a little bit more excited again, it's hard for him to settle down, and we're doing back into the sit stays, right? And the kids are nearby. There we go. So we just start off again very close, make it easy for him to succeed. Good recovery there. And you've noticed here that I've kind of wound up the leash again back on the freedom leash, just because, especially when there's children around or cars or anything, it makes it a lot easier to quickly lock the leash at a certain distance. And I'm just showing the camera here that it's still unlocked so he can move freely, but I'll be ready to press the button whenever. And now, since either the kids have moved away, we're gonna go ahead and release some of that extra leash length again. So you can kind of clearly see that he's following all on his own. He's a little distracted by his nose. It's the main thing with Milo. Usually the cause of him breaking a heel or pulling on the leash is just the fact that he starts trailing. And some dogs will definitely be more susceptible to that depending on their breed. It's just something that you want to be patient with and reward them accordingly for going against their instincts. They have this extremely powerful tool that many times it was humans for hundreds of years developing, and we want to kind of have him not utilize it, in less than, a couple years or so of his lifespan. So it's important to keep these things in mind when we're working with a dog, that we purposefully made them, want to track for us. We've made them want to bark to alert us of danger. And now that those skills aren't required by everybody, because most families just want a dog that their children can pet and they can cuddle up with and walk nicely with along the street. A lot of those traits that were very desirable for a long time have kind of gone to the wayside. And now we kind of want a dog that just wants to sit, stay, not bark, not move quickly. It's a very interesting new breed, I feel like, nowadays, with the vast majority of families. Not a lot of us go out hunting with our dogs. Not a lot of us need protection work. There are definitely those dogs, and they're out there, but a lot of them naturally still have this kind of skill set within them that they need to learn to control. So you did really good there. We got the kids going around just playing, and that's why you can see he kind of gets distracted here and there. And honestly, that's actually really good for him to see things and not react. It'd be the same as him catching a scent on the ground and not wanting to follow, because it's really him utilizing his own self-control and refocusing back onto, us, which is what we inevitably want. So we really want to focus on rewarding that behavior and marking it. So we now have a very loose, longer lead available with kids going around and him able to sit, stay. And whenever he looks like he's about to break, I take a moment here to reinforce and then give him praise, especially since I know that the kids are really close by. It's a little bit harder to see from this far away, but when I was working with him, you can kind of see him going back and forth between the children and myself and remaining composed. So that's why it's really important to mark those moments and give him that praise. Now we're releasing into a heel follow with distractions nearby. And back into a sit stay. Okay. This time he broke early, so we're just resetting. He did really well there. Have to be careful when there's, of course, cars coming too. That's why I like working either in like a one-way road. Preferably a park would be good too. A court is good as well, just because it's really easy to see, well, when cars are coming in. Just going into some good heel work. And this is what we were talking about earlier. So with Waffle, he was really good at just starting and stopping while walking next to me. And you can see Milo is very conditioned when he stops to kind of swing out in front and sit kind of like he's waiting for a treat. So this is where we're trying to get him used to just following on the side and getting treated on the side. There we go. And now we are helping him by prompting him to stay on the side when we start and stop. A short sit, stay, and recall. Especially when we're trying to develop him and letting him know when to release. It doesn't have to be after a very long amount of time. Sometimes it's easier if it's a short amount of time. The little girl's chain came off of her bike here, so just taking a moment to help fix that for her. He's still on a loose leash, so here I am just kind of winding it up with the freedom leash just in case somebody or a car comes by while I'm trying to work on this. It's important to know how much your attention span is too on things like here. Right, I think he was just going towards the little girls. Being able to kind of quickly press the button to stop him from running off, especially because you can tell that he's very excited. And they're still a little apprehensive, but they want to try to engage and meet with him and play with him too. They're doing good here. I'm just trying to have him stay close to me while I'm fixing the bike for her. You can see him here trying to interact with them as well. They're getting braver and he's getting calmer, so sometimes it's just about meeting at that halfway point. Alright, and now the little girl's bike is fixed and he is refocused back onto me. We're just gonna go ahead and call it a session here and just giving him a moment to say hi to his family.